She wakes before the sun, the kind of waking that comes not from rest but from a heart that never really slept. The small apartment feels heavier than the air around it, as if the walls have memorized her pain and press it back into her lungs. She moves quietly, almost apologetically, as though her presence disturbs a world that has long forgotten her. Her divorce papers still sit on the table, unsigned copies kept only because she hasn't found the courage to throw them away. They represent the end of a life she once believed would save her. She boils water for tea but doesn't drink it, watching the steam rise and vanish like all the hopes she once held in her palms. She whispers a prayer not because she expects a miracle but because speaking her fears aloud feels like the only thing keeping her alive. She asks for strength, for a direction, for anything that resembles mercy. She does not ask for love. Love betrayed her, love crushed her, love left her poorer than before she found it. She thinks about work, about the long day ahead cleaning office floors for people who never look at her twice. She used to dream of teaching, of writing, of doing something that would make her daughter proud, but dreams require a foundation stronger than survival. She checks her phone but finds no messages, no calls, no reminders that she matters. She puts on her worn shoes and steps into the noise of the world, carrying her loneliness like an extra limb. Every bus ride reminds her of everything she lost: home, dignity, the illusion of security, even the version of herself who used to smile without forcing it. She closes her eyes and breathes deeply, repeating the same simple prayer she's whispered for weeks, a quiet plea to a silent sky: please let something change. She arrives at the company she cleans, a towering glass building that reflects the sunrise in a way she hasn't seen in years. She keeps her gaze low, too accustomed to being invisible to imagine anyone might see her. She works with practiced precision, wiping down tables, collecting empty cups, mopping floors still warm from footsteps of people who don't know her name. She tries to focus on the rhythm of her tasks, letting it drown out the memory of her ex-husband's voice and the bitterness of broken vows. But today something feels different, an unfamiliar tension in the air, a sense that her prayer didn't drift into the void as usual. As she sweeps the executive hallway, she senses someone behind her. She straightens instinctively, heart tightening. It's him, the CEO she has heard employees whisper about. He is not supposed to be here this early. She expects him to walk past without noticing her, but he stops. She freezes, unsure whether to look up or keep her eyes down. He says her name, gently, as though he has known it forever. She is too startled to respond at first. He tells her he overheard her prayer through the thin air vent that connects his private office to the hallway. He speaks it back to her word for word, as if her plea had tattooed itself on his mind. She feels exposed, vulnerable, almost ashamed, but he doesn't pity her. He seems moved by her strength, her resilience, her quiet desperation. Her breath catches when he tells her he wants to help, not out of charity or guilt, but because something in her voice wouldn't let him turn away. She doesn't understand what he means, but his expression carries an intention she hasn't seen in years: genuine concern. A man who could command an empire is standing still for her, listening to her, offering her something she can't yet name. For the first time in a long time, she feels a shift inside her, a small flicker of warmth beneath the heaviness. She doesn't know what will come next, but she senses that her story has changed its direction the moment she whispered a prayer and he heard it. She follows him through the quiet corridor, unsure why her steps feel unsteady, as if the ground itself is shifting beneath her. He speaks softly, asking questions she's never been asked with sincerity: whether she has support, whether she's eating well, whether she feels safe where she lives. She answers cautiously, her voice thin but honest. She doesn't want pity, but something in his tone tells her he isn't searching for a weakness to exploit. He is trying to understand the weight she carries, a weight he somehow felt just from hearing her whispered plea. He listens without interrupting, his attention unwavering, and it unsettles her more than cruelty ever did. She is not accustomed to being heard. She is even less accustomed to being valued. He tells her about a program the company never managed to launch: support for employees in crisis, a project that got buried under meetings and spreadsheets and priorities that didn't include people like her. As he speaks, she notices a stiffness in his words, the frustration of a man who built everything yet somehow missed what mattered. He says meeting her, hearing her broken prayer through an unintended opening in the wall, reminded him of something he lost along the way: compassion, purpose, the ability to see beyond numbers and power. She doesn't understand why her voice would cause such a shift, but he insists it did. She wants to step back, keep a safe distance, but she also wants to hear more. Something inside her responds to his sincerity, something she thought had died with her marriage. When he asks her to sit for a moment, she hesitates, unsure whether she is allowed to. He assures her she is. He tells her he pulled her file from HR, not to reprimand her, but to understand why someone working so hard earns so little. Her stomach tightens with embarrassment. She thinks he will judge her, but he only shakes his head with quiet anger at the system that trapped her. He tells her she deserves better. No one has ever spoken those words with conviction. She tries to protest, to claim she's fine, that she can survive, but her voice falters. She is tired of surviving. She is tired of pretending she isn't drowning. He notices her hands trembling and offers water, not touching her, not crossing boundaries, just acknowledging her humanity. As she drinks, he talks about the weight of loneliness, the responsibilities he shoulders alone, the silence in his penthouse despite having everything the world praises. She cannot imagine a billionaire feeling empty, but the look in his eyes tells her he's not exaggerating. Maybe wealth does not fill the spaces left hollow by neglect, betrayal, or loss. Maybe power cannot protect a heart from aching. In his words she hears a confession, not romantic, not inappropriate, simply human. They are two people standing on opposite ends of life, both bruised in different ways, both longing for something they can't quite describe. She thanks him for listening, but he stops her, insisting she owes him nothing. He tells her the company has the resources to help and he will personally make sure she gets support, housing assistance, emotional counseling if she wants it, a safe path forward. She feels overwhelmed, the promise too big, too unexpected. She has learned the hard way not to trust easily. Yet there is no manipulation, no agenda behind his eyes, only a determination she doesn't know how to accept. She wonders why a man like him would care about a woman like her, divorced, worn down, practically invisible. He seems to sense her doubt and simply says that sometimes people collide at the exact moment they're meant to. Her heartbeat thuds painfully as he asks if she will allow him to help. Not command, not demand, ask. A gesture so simple, yet it disarms her completely. She wants to say yes but fears what yes might mean. She fears relying on someone again, fears opening even a single window to hope. And still, the memory of her whispered prayer lingers in her mind, the one request made in exhaustion, not expectation, please let something change. She looks at him and sees no threats, no hidden motives, only a man responding to a voice that wasn't meant for him but reached him anyway. For the first time since her world collapsed, she feels like something larger than suffering might be unfolding. She breathes in, slow and uncertain, and realizes that saying yes might not be the beginning of danger, but the beginning of healing. The moment she agrees, even with a hesitant nod, something changes in the air between them, subtle, unspoken, but undeniably real. He doesn't celebrate or rush, he simply acknowledges her trust with a quiet gratitude that makes her chest tighten. She expects the world to shift dramatically, but instead the shift is internal, a soft cracking open of a door she had sealed shut for years. He walks beside her, not ahead, not behind, matching her pace as if he understands she is relearning how to walk without fear. She tries to stay composed, reminding herself that help doesn't mean dependency, but her emotions churn beneath the surface, tangled between relief and vulnerability. Accepting kindness feels dangerous after surviving betrayal, yet she cannot deny the warmth creeping into places that had grown cold. He brings her to a private lounge the executives rarely use, a quiet space with soft lighting and an almost unreal calm. He sets his phone aside, shutting out the world without hesitation, giving her his full attention. She sits tensely at first, worried about crossing some invisible boundary, but he takes the seat opposite her, keeping respectful distance, signaling that she controls the space. He asks if she wants to share more about what she has endured, but he does not push. She surprises herself by speaking. Maybe it's exhaustion, maybe it's the safety in his steady, undemanding presence. Her words come slowly at first, then flow more freely. The years of fear, the bitterness in her marriage, the manipulation disguised as affection, the subtle cruelty that convinced her she wasn't enough. She doesn't go into explicit details, but the ache in her voice fills in the blanks. He listens with a stillness that makes everything she says feel validated. No judgment, no impatience, only a restrained anger on her behalf that flickers across his eyes before he catches it. She watches this powerful man absorb her pain with a seriousness her ex-husband never gave her. The contrast is stark, almost disorienting. She feels a pressure in her throat, a swelling of emotions she hasn't allowed herself to feel out loud. When she pauses, embarrassed by the tremor in her tone, he tells her she survived something that would have broken many. His words settle over her like a blanket, unexpected but grounding. She doesn't need praise, but recognition. She hasn't had that in years. Then he shares something she didn't anticipate. He tells her that he once loved someone who betrayed him deeply, not with dramatic scandal but with quiet disloyalty, the kind that eats from the inside out. He trusted the wrong person, believed the wrong promises, and paid for it with years of isolation even as the world applauded his success. The emptiness in his confession mirrors hers so precisely it steals her breath. She realizes they are not simply two people from different worlds, they are two wounded hearts hiding behind different forms of armor. The understanding between them sharpens, not romantic yet, but intimate in its honesty. He shifts the conversation gently toward what comes next, careful not to overwhelm her. He explains the assistance he can offer: temporary housing closer to work, a position that matches her skills instead of burying them, financial stability that doesn't come with strings. She hesitates again. She doesn't want charity. He senses this and speaks with calm firmness, telling her this is not about rescuing her, it's about giving her the chance she was always denied. A chance to stand, recover, breathe. A chance to rebuild without fear gnawing at her every step. She feels the truth in his voice, and it disarms her. The silence between them deepens, heavy but not uncomfortable. She studies him, trying to understand why her quiet prayer affected him so strongly. He simply says there was something in her voice, raw, honest, pleading not for luxury but for strength. He tells her it reminded him of who he wanted to be before success consumed him. She doesn't know how to respond. Gratitude feels too small, trust too fragile, but a quiet bond expands between them, delicate yet undeniable. As the conversation draws on, she realizes she is no longer thinking about survival. For the first time in so long, she is thinking about possibility. He doesn't touch her, doesn't even move closer, yet she feels an unexpected warmth radiating from his presence, a reassurance that her story is not ending in brokenness. She leaves the room with a steadier breath, carrying the strange awareness that her whispered prayer did not echo into nothing. Someone heard it, someone answered, not with fairy tale promises, but with genuine intent. And that simple, profound shift awakens something inside her she thought was lost forever, the faint, trembling spark of hope. He walks her out of the building after their conversation, not as a CEO escorting an employee, but as a man making sure she doesn't face the world feeling small. The morning light reflects off the glass walls, casting a quiet glow that feels strangely symbolic, as if the universe has shifted a fraction to make room for her new beginning. She keeps her arms folded tightly, grounding herself, trying not to let hope run too far ahead of reality. He doesn't crowd her, simply stays near enough to show he is present, committed to what he promised. She senses a depth in him, a blend of discipline and loneliness that mirrors her own bruised resilience. They are walking side by side for the first time, but it doesn't feel accidental anymore. Outside, the city noise surrounds them, but for once it doesn't drown her thoughts. He outlines the immediate steps with calm precision. His assistant will contact her with the necessary documents, a relocation team will help her transition, and a new role tailored to her strength will be prepared within the week. She listens with cautious disbelief. She has lived so long in scarcity that abundance feels dangerous. Part of her waits for him to withdraw the offer, to realize she isn't worth the trouble, to see her as insignificant the way her ex once did. But he doesn't falter. His certainty remains steady, his focus unwavering. It is the steadiness, more than the help itself, that begins to peel away her fear. He pauses before she leaves, asking if she is frightened. She wants to deny it, but the truth slips out before she can stop it. Yes, she is terrified. Not of him, but of trusting anyone again, of expecting too much, of letting herself believe she deserves a life that doesn't hurt. He takes in her confession with quiet seriousness, not trying to minimize her fear or plaster it with comforting phrases. Instead, he tells her fear is a sign she is stepping into a life she has never known, not a sign she is walking into danger. The gentle conviction in his tone steadies her more than any promise of protection. She realizes he isn't trying to take control of her life. He is simply offering a path she can choose without pressure. As she turns to leave, he stops her with one last request: to update him, not out of obligation but because he genuinely wants to know she is safe. She hesitates and then agrees, surprised by how natural the answer feels. On the bus ride home, she stares out the window, absorbing the whirlwind of the morning. The world looks the same, yet she feels different, lighter, not because her problems vanished, but because someone finally saw her and didn't turn away. She thinks about the prayer she whispered days ago, nothing more than a fragile breath slipping into silence, never expecting a response. She wonders if what happened is fate, coincidence, or something greater than she can grasp. Back in her small apartment, she sits on the bed that has held too many nights of sorrow and feels a shift inside her that brings unfamiliar warmth. She doesn't imagine a fairy tale ending, doesn't rush to label whatever is forming between them, but she recognizes a truth she can no longer deny. This man entered her life at the exact moment she needed someone to believe she still mattered. And though she doesn't know what the future holds, she senses that her story is no longer defined by betrayal or scarcity. It is being rewritten, quietly, unexpectedly, by two people whose broken pieces seem to fit in ways neither of them planned. For the first time in years, she lies back, closes her eyes, and allows herself the quiet luxury of imagining tomorrow without fear.